All right, the next drawing assignment that we're going to do is starting to begin to draw the object in addition to the negative space and the contour lines. So the way that we're going to begin to do this is to follow a grid. So you're going to see this assignment that has these pieces of candy stacked on top of each other, and there's a grid placed over the top. So the reason why artists use a grid to help them draw accurately is because it can break the image down into smaller pieces that are more manageable to draw at one time. So if you notice, the grid has numbers across the top and letters going down the side. You're going to be drawing the same image in the empty spaces below, and it's the exact same size space with the same numbers across and letters down the side. So the first thing that you want to do is make some observations about what you're going to draw. Observe what boxes the objects actually are located in. So really, there's hardly anything in box A1. There's just this tiny, tiny edge of the lollipop right here. But that's pretty much an empty box. You might identify what boxes look easier because there's fewer lines to draw. So maybe A3 might be an easier one because that's just got this kind of curved contour line. Maybe box C3 might be easier to draw because you just have these kind of straight edge lines here. And then you might identify which boxes are the harder ones that are going to be to draw because they have more contour lines. So B2 is going to be the harder one to draw because you've got the diagonal lines of the stick and then more lines of the starburst. Possibly A2 might be a tricky one to draw right here. So I would make a plan for yourself. Decide, where do you want to begin? Do you want to draw easy to hard? Do you want to draw the hard one first and get out of the way? Or do you want to draw in a logical order? So when I draw, I tend to draw the way that I read. I draw left to right and top to bottom, but that's just how I like to do it. It doesn't mean I'm right. It's just the way I prefer. So the next thing that you need to do is identify where your contour lines are located. So your contour lines are going to be everything that's the outside edge of the objects. So if it helps, go ahead and darken those. My starburst is going to have an edge here. And then my starburst is also going to have kind of this front side, a top, front, and I guess two sides for this one is a corner. So you're going to want to be identifying kind of where these edges are that you're drawing. And then you really want to pay attention to the negative space. Once you decide on which box you're going to draw first, look at the negative space, the distance between and around the object, because like we learned last class, when you can see the negative space, it helps you know where to place the contour line. So I might begin, if I'm going to do A number 1, I just have this tiny little corner piece. I want to look at where this crosses my grid. So my lines cross my grid about here. I could measure that or I could eyeball that. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and give myself a similar set of marks to know where to begin. And when you do this assignment, you want to draw very, very light because you will be coloring this in with color pencils of your choice in the end. So if you draw too hard and dark, you're not going to be able to erase your mistakes. So you have to use soft hand pressure. Okay, so now I'm just going to fill in this contour line, which is just kind of this curve, and it's just slightly going in box A1. And then I'm done with A1. So now I might move into box A2. I'm going to look at this negative space right here and maybe give myself a mark. I'm going to look at where this line crosses the grid and maybe give myself a mark here. I could give myself a mark here. So now I'm going to continue to draw this line. We're just going to curve over and across. And then this is going to curve kind of down this way. And then I might continue across into A3, see where it crosses my guide here, or my grid. And then I'm going to connect this line over this way. So then I might finish the rest of this lollipop here. It's going to cross about here and kind of end up close to where I began over here. And then maybe it makes sense to plug in the stick of my lollipop. So I'm going to look at this negative space, this triangle shape here. I've got a triangle shape here. So I'm going to kind of sketch that triangle in. I'm going to look at this triangle shape that's a negative space here. But really, if I look at this stick, this is one continuous line on the top edge and the bottom edge. So when I draw this in, I need to make sure it's a continuous line so that they connect. Otherwise, it's going to look like my lollipop stick is bent and broken, and it's not. It's a pretty smooth, straight stick. So then I'm going to stop and look at what I drew. So I notice that the corner of this lollipop stick goes in the corner of the grid, and mine doesn't. So I'm going to correct and make that adjustment. So I'm going to move this over to the corner, and now I'm going to look at the thickness of my stick. This looks too thick now, so I'm going to make this more skinny, and it still needs to be parallel or a straight line all the way down, and I'm going to erase that and make that adjustment. Okay, that looks more accurate. Now I'm going to finish off the top of this stick, which is an A number 2. So this line has to come up to the grid, and this will come up a little bit, and it's going to curve across the top. So I'm going to proceed to work my way around the rest of the objects. I'm going to pay attention to how this starburst is behind the stick. I'm going to pay attention to the edge of my starburst, which starburst sticks out most to the side, which is the middle starburst. The top and the bottom are kind of in line with each other. So making these observations is going to set me up to be much more successful when I continue to finish the contour edges of this.